Welcome to Algebra 2, Unit 7, Lesson 15, Practice Problems. This lesson has one vocabulary term, and that is treatment. In an experiment where you are comparing two groups, one of which is being given a treatment, and the other of which is the control group without any treatment, the treatment is the value of the variable that is changed for the treatment group. If you have any questions about this vocabulary term, please ask for clarification now before we begin the practice problems. Our first practice problem says Claire analyzes oil prices in her economics class. She finds that the mean oil price between 1988 and 2002 is $27 per barrel, with a standard deviation of $5.50 per barrel. Select the z-score for a price of $38 per barrel. So, if I want to calculate a z-score, I take the value that I am observing, I subtract the mean, and then I divide that difference by the standard deviation. So, in this instance, our value is $38. Our mean is $27, and our standard deviation is $5.50. $38 minus $27 is $11. And $11 divided by $5.50 is a z-score of 2. This matches answer C, 2. If you have any questions about how to calculate a z-score, please ask for clarification now before we move on to the next practice problem. Our second practice problem says Priya is investigating the population density of deer in several different forests. The mean population density is 36.4 deer per square mile, with a standard deviation of 4.6 deer per square mile. Use the z-score for 43.3 deer per square mile and the table to find the area under the normal curve that is less than 43.3 deer per square mile. So the first thing we have to do is calculate the z-score. Remember that this is the value we want minus the mean divided by the standard deviation. So the value we want is 43.3. The mean is 36.4, and the standard deviation is 4.6. (43.3) minus 36.4 is 6.9. And 6.9 divided by 4.6 is 1.5. So the z-score is 1.5. Now, when it talks about the table, it is talking about a z-score table. You can simply Google z-score table and pick any of the choices that come up. As we look at this, on the left column, we have the different z-scores. This one starts at negative 3.4 and increases by 0.01. If we had even more accurate measurements, you can see that it increases going to the right by 0.01. So this top left corner would be negative 3.4, then it would be negative 3.41, negative 3.42, and so on. So what we got was a positive 1.5. So we want to scroll down to the next table until we find 1.5. And since we don't have any more decimal numbers after the 5, we're going to take this first column that aligns with 0.00. And that gives us a number of 0.9332. So area under the curve less than 43.3 deer per square mile is 0.9332 or 93.32%. This means 93.32% of the results had less than 43.3 deer per square mile. If you have any questions about how to calculate a z-score or how to use a z-score table to find the corresponding area under the curve, please ask for clarification now before we move on to our last practice problem. On our last practice problem, it says find the area under the curve that is less than a significant value for each z-score listed here. So for number 1, we have a z-score of 3.2. So this is where you would go to a z-score table, go down until we find 3.2 on this left-hand column, and then look at the first number that comes after it, and we have 0.9993. So number 1, the answer is 0.9993, or 99.93% of the area is less than a z-score of 3.2. Number 2. Now they give us a z-score of 2. We go back to the table. We look in this left-hand column until we find a z-score of 2. And then our first number is 9.9772. So for number 2, we have 0.9772. Or 97.72% of the area under the curve is less than a z-score of 2. Number 3. They give us a z-score of 0.5. So we go to the z-score table. We look in the left-hand column until we find 0.5, and we look at the first number they give us. Our answer is 0.6915. So that's 0.6915, or 69.15% of the area under the curve is less than a z-score of 0.5. Number 4. They give us a z-score of -1. So we go back to the z-score table. We're going to scroll up to the part of the table that has negative z-scores. We want -1, so we find -1.0 on the left column, and we look to the right, and our answer is 0.1587. So 0.1587, or 15.87% of the area under the curve is less than a z-score of -1. And finally, number 5, they give us a z-score of -2.6. So we look for -2.6 in the left column. We go to the right, and our first number is 0.0047. So 0.0047, or 0.47% of the area under the curve is less than a z-score of -2.6. If you have any questions about how to use a z-score table, Please ask for further clarification now before we move on to our final lesson, Lesson 16.